Welcome back to the next installment of Chess 12, and this is part 5. Part 5 again involves Chess 3. We learned a little bit about Chess 3 in the last couple of installments. We've added the prince, the princess, the archer, the champion, and we also learned that we could have more bishops, knights, rooks, and now this includes archers and champions and so on in our game. Okay, this installment we add 2 new pieces again. This is the Duke and the Cavalier. Okay, and what I did is I set up a regular chessboard. Once again, we're setting up just a regular setup with the different pieces, so that when you play against somebody, as you start to learn some of these new pieces, if you keep everything else normal-ish, then it helps you to learn the new pieces before you play a different game. So last time I emphasized how you could make up some different pieces yourself. What I did this time is, instead of putting in new pieces, I left the bishop and the knight where I would put the Duke and the Cavalier. That's because the Duke and the Cavalier are very similar to a bishop and a knight. The only difference is that in addition to the bishop move, the Duke can also do a 1 square movement in any direction. That's the same for the Cavalier. In addition to the knight move, the Cavalier can do a 1 square move in any direction. All right. Now this is not in addition to the bishop or the knight move. This is instead of. Okay, so they have a choice. All right. Let me demonstrate here. So here is what I have chosen to represent the Duke. Okay, so the Duke can move 1 square in any direction, or can move like a bishop. Okay, now the advantage of this, of course, is if you need to change your position a little bit. In the case of the bishop, you can change your square color. Okay, because bishops, they basically run the diagonals on their square color. Well, now the dukes can shift their square color if it becomes necessary. Okay, same with the Cavalier. All right, the Cavalier can move as a knight, or can change 1 square. So if they need to get some sort of positional advantage, they can change that 1 square so that they can move differently. They control different set of squares. Okay. So here's a few moves, and some of you might recognize this opening position as the Ruy Lopez, the opening of the Spanish game. And pretty much it's has been done normally, but at this point, when black moves a6, the bishop now has an additional choice of what he can move. He could actually move back a square. Not the bishop, I'm sorry, it's the Duke. Okay, the Duke can move back a square, and now that changes the whole positional setup. Now, of course, this isn't a smart move, all right, because in moving 1 square backwards, he puts himself into a double attack, all right, but he could also possibly move 1 square forward. Okay, once again, not a great move. He's not protected and the pawn is attacking him at that point. Okay, so but it's an option. All right, he could also move one square sideways, which once again puts him in attack of the knight. He can move one square this way, and the bishop can possibly attack him. Or sorry, the duke. It's the other duke. And so, you know, they're not great moves, but they're moves that are possible now using the duke. Okay, so it's another thing to keep in mind. So with that in mind, after possibly playing a game with the setup that you just saw, you should try a game where you and your opponent choose where you set your pieces up, and make sure that you put a duke and a cavalier in the mix, so that once again you can practice with how the duke and the cavalier work. The duke and the cavalier are better than their component bishop and knight, and the question would be then, would you want to use a bishop or a knight? Would you choose to use a bishop or a knight instead of a duke or cavalier? And that question won't be answered until you play and you see what the advantages and disadvantages are of having these pieces. It may come up at some point where there's a restriction because of enough play testing that we say, hey, you know, we should only have one duke or one cavalier in a game, and that's something that we can determine at a future point. So this setup here between white and black, they decided on 3 rooks, 1 cavalier and 2 dukes, and the king and the queen are on the flank side for protection. And you can, you know, play a game like this, or, you know, however you set up your chess 3 game. The next step into playing this is play the chess 3 game, allowing not only the duke and the cavalier, but the prince and the princess and the archer and the champion. So you have a choice of, it would be 9 pieces altogether that you could possibly put into the rank where you choose to put them. So you could play a game like that, and you can get a much better idea of how the different pieces work together. There are a couple more installments which will show some additional pieces, and we'll go from there. Okay, so try this game out and see what you think.